In that case, we had an officer who had just done, a significant long shift on a side gig and then went to work on his actual job. And, that's called off-duty work. And that's something that I remember our council member saying, she was going to take care of. That was not going to happen again. That was not going to happen. And so again, 2020, we had the opportunity to do something. We haven't done something. So we've been promised safety and reform, and we have neither.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
This is the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. My guest today is Ward 13 candidate for Minneapolis City Council, Kate Mortenson. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
We should tell people the caucus is like March 14th. Am I right about that?
This coming Tuesday. Yep.
You might be listening to this episode on that day because I think either Monday or Tuesday. So if you're listening, and it's in person in Ward 13, not the form, right?
Yeah, get your ass over to your voting precinct. Can I say that on a podcast?
You are welcome to say that, yes.
To your voting precinct. And, this is the most important period of this campaign. A lot of people don't even know about it. So you spend an hour becoming a delegate on March 14th. Then you spend, a couple more hours, bring your knitting, bring your date, bring your whiteboard and plan your future and go to that April 1 endorsing convention. And the outcome I'm hoping for is, no endorsement, actually, because that evens the playing field.
And then it's on to November. So, Kate, tell me the single biggest factor causing you to make this jump in your life, disrupt your life, and run for office. What is the biggest thing causing you to run for city council?
And, that's a great and really important question, because when I mention it to people, they say, well, why? And, this is not as articulate as the stump pieces that I'm happy to talk about, but the really short answer is that I only have the rest of my life to live. And I cannot sit around and watch our city drift any longer and wait for the leadership that I'm not seeing. And believe that in Ward 13, we have values that are not being reflected. And we have a desire to see the rest of the city do well. And I want to enact those values.
So what is Linea Palmisano not delivering that you feel like you could deliver?
Results. Accomplishments. Okay. If we were to think about 10 years in office and the vice chair of the Minneapolis City Council's accomplishments.
Well, she voted against the 2040 plan. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, I feel like we live in a time when being against something counts as being an accomplishment. It's like we've become so afraid of going into the ditch that we forgot to be great as a city. So voting against something does not, in my mind, equal an accomplishment. One of the things I'd like to do, John, is shape better choices, so that we don't have to have our present and our future be at odds with each other. Because we have the present we have, and that future's coming. How can we make those two realities get along?
We must be being unfair to Linea Palmisano. She must have accomplishments somewhere. I'm not the best person to tout her accomplishments, but there must be something. What does she say? So you must have researched your opponent. What does Linea Palmisano say that she's done well?
She's thoughtful. She looks at things with a fine-tooth comb. She is progressive and pragmatic, tried and tested. So these are, come from the
right.
The marketing materials.
Okay. Well, that's what Linea Palmisano was saying about herself. So let's talk about the experience of living in Minneapolis over the last few years. Can you name a problem you saw in the city over the last few years and an action you took to make it better? So I'm thinking maybe some activism, organizing, showing up at City Hall about something. Like, what action did you take to solve a problem, and what problem was that?
So we have a challenge that is actually an opportunity we haven't fully realized, which is how we bring people who are so often on the fringes to the center so that they can bring their gifts and their capabilities and their talents to bear on how our community thrives. And so in the last couple of years, I had the opportunity to put together a local business, local vendor program that prioritized every dollar that we spent with our Final Four organizing committee, because I was the CEO of that organization. One of the things I love about being a boss is that you get to pull that lever. You get to pull the lever and you get to be accountable for having done it. And so one of the things we committed to doing is really amplifying the talents and capabilities that exist in our communities that are under don't have access. So businesses that are woman-owned, BIPOC-owned, veteran-owned, we had this commitment. And one of the things we did is we looked at the city of Minneapolis's website, because they have a really great website about how much spending are they doing with minority businesses and underrepresented businesses. And so, in a lot of cases, over the course of that Final Four, we were spending more than entire departments spend in a whole year. So that is an example of where we have a challenge. We really need to figure out how to bring people closer into the center of creating the dynamic and successful community and city that we want to be. And so, make it happen, help build that capacity, create that opportunity. So that is something that I did.
So from your website, so you say pro-business and pro-social. That's a phrase that you use on the website. I saw it in an interview you did about the company that you have. You also use the phrase pro-business and pro-social.
Yeah.
I have a sense of what pro-business means. What does pro-social mean?
I feel like, John, that there is there's a false narrative out there, and it's one that I don't accept. I don't accept that having a vibrant and dynamic business community and business and economic environment is somehow not just demonstrating a commitment to the well-being and the access and the opportunity for those who haven't traditionally held power. That the reason that we have the challenges that we exist in the social sphere is because of something having to do with business. I don't think, I'm not saying it's never the case, but I'm just not saying it's not like a law of nature, like gravity, that these things have to be in opposition to one another. So what I would like to demonstrate is having a mindset that is absolutely for the well-being and the flourishing of the entire community, and also recognizes that in order to accomplish those goals, we need a dynamism in the economic side of the equation, which suggests that we want to retain our large businesses downtown. We want to support our businesses locally, because when we don't, suddenly it's just not that great to live in a city anymore.
Is there a particular business argument against Linea Palmisano? Where has she fallen short of what the business community needs in either Ward 13 or downtown, as you mentioned? Where has she gone wrong, and what would you do differently?
I think that the incumbent is well regarded downtown. I was actually surprised at the reaction that I got from a lot of the downtowners, let's just say those who are kind of closer in to City Hall, who felt like they didn't need anything different in Ward 13 to accomplish what it is that they are trying to accomplish, and weren't even really very interested in what different I might bring. So setting that aside, and I have lots of ideas about how we could do better in downtown, in our business environment downtown. But here in the local community, our local businesses, many that I'm speaking to don't feel like they have an advocate, don't feel like there is anybody who is bringing their voice to some of the decision making that is taking place, or they feel like they're maybe being stonewalled a little bit. And so, hence the opportunity I have to put up some of these window clings that say support local businesses. And it's really important for every part of the city that our local businesses are thriving. It's that desire to walk, 15 minutes and be at a destination where you can put some of your disposable income into, whether it's a cup of coffee or, a step ladder at the hardware store. Like, those things are really important to city life. So I would say that in Ward 13, the local business community is struggling, doesn't feel like they have a strong advocate.
So what you say about downtown, the downtown business community, doesn't really surprise me, because when I think of Linea Palmisano, it's somebody who's been in lockstep with the mayor. The business community supports the mayor. She does not deviate from his agenda. So why wouldn't they be perfectly happy with her, right?
Yeah, I think an object at rest stays at rest. So there's a little bit of the comfort with the status quo, and this is the one that we know, and that we have a good sense of where things will go, with the incumbent, and that actually surprises me, because often what we see in Ward 13 is we see a challenger who comes from a really different place on the political spectrum. So a challenger who may be very progressive and or for this ward very progressive and to the left, and I'm not. I'm moderate, and let's get results. I mean, leadership and results are really what I have a track record around. And not being in politics, I don't have any of the baggage that comes with politics. And if I have social capital, if I have leadership capital, it exists so that I can spend it down. And so that's what I would really like to do at this time, as we're getting used to that new system that we have with an executive mayor. There just needs to be, a healthy and robust relationship between those two parts of government, so that the people's will can really be enacted.
I was reading the interview you did with Southwest Voices, and maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I was sensing a little bit of frustration. You mentioned the inside versus outside. Did you think when you announced that you would be more well received by either what I think you characterize as the insiders or the business community? Was that surprising to you, or was anything surprising to you when you got in?
Well, I'm just kind of like dorky this way. I believe in democracy, and I think that robust choices make us better, make us stronger. And so I would have presumed that people would not be fearful of having a robust contest that gives the people of Ward 13 what on the political spectrum are some great viable choices. That really did surprise me.
Let's talk about public safety. And again, as I think about Linea Palmisano, I think of somebody who has been completely loyal to the mayor's agenda, and we're trying to hire more police. The mayor, it's in the budget. You can't say we're not trying. And so I wonder, what is the public safety argument against Linea Palmisano? I think I saw a little bit of that on your website. I think maybe you said something about urgency. Like, what should we be doing on public safety? Where are we falling short?
So, when it comes to trauma that was experienced here in Ward 13, in the form of a police community member shooting that, and someone ended up dying, Justine Ruszczyk, and, we were on the map around the world for, something horrible. In that case, we had an officer who had just done, a significant long shift on a side gig, and then went to work on his actual job. And, that's called off-duty work. And that's something that I remember our council member saying, she was going to take care of. That was not going to happen again. That was not going to happen. And, we're talking about the incumbent who has that information and has the studies and the data and the recommendations for how to handle off-duty work. The comparisons of where it's done well. It's done well in Madison, Wisconsin. It's done well in South Carolina. Oh, that's a long time ago. That's 6 years ago. And then, 2020. Oh, got another problem. Here we go. Now we're on the map again. It's one of the biggest challenges the world has ever seen in terms of the elevation of race equity and police, brutality, a culture of brutality and policing. We have the United Nations asking our president to do something with policing in America. We had a 3-year head start on that. What did we do? What did we accomplish? Again, we had an officer, in this case, Derek Chauvin, who collected a sweet paycheck from side gigs. And so again, 2020, we had the opportunity to do something. We haven't done something. So we've been promised safety and reform, and we have neither.
So I wonder if that's a better attack line against the mayor. I don't want to defend Council Member Palmisano, but like the mayor is in charge of the police and always has been. Isn't this the mayor's problem? What was she supposed to do? Have the mayor do his job better?
Well, I think that, the mayor that we have now aside, because that is not the point. That is not, the mayor is not up for re-election, but the mayor's role is now a unique role. The executive got elevated. That's awesome. And so now I know who is accountable when I, have my opportunity to vote for the mayor. How do I feel about progress? Am I seeing it? So that has its moment, but now, and for the next 2 years, we can look at our tenure incumbent and see, okay, how have you moved that ball forward? What is the progress that you've been able to lead on, even, when the circumstances are in your ward, when the circumstances are citywide, in fact, global. So that's a big frustration for me. And I think from the city council, we need to have and should have, because it is healthy, a robust interaction that is helping that mayor, whoever that mayor is, be successful, sometimes by turning up the heat on a situation. You set that mayor up to be like, I got to move because I got all these people telling me I got to move. So sometimes you're offering, cover for the executive to make the move. Sometimes, it's a carrot of opportunity, and sometimes it's a stick of impending disaster. But, I have a lot of experience with governance. I've helped organizations establish governance. I've chaired governance, and we have a really important role for the city council members now to play around accountability and ensuring that the enterprise is doing the people's will, even if they don't themselves, pull every, lever and turn every dial day to day.
So you talked earlier about the joys of being a boss. And so we lived through the era of the 2021 campaign where we heard about the 13 bosses. Now we're in the era of the single boss, the strong mayor. How will you be effective within this system? I don't know. And what is your opinion about the government structure? Are we on the right track?
Yes, we are on the right track. And I'm familiar enough with the historical challenge, which, frankly, we're still unbuilding some of those historical pieces. Not even frankly, we have to unbuild some of these historical pieces, which have to do with how our city government has operated in silos. Right. So for sure, safety and MPD and that's a nationwide issue and challenge of the police departments existing in kind of their own special space. But public works. It feels to me that we could have better integration of, what the different parts of government are trying to accomplish, so that as those accomplishments are actually hitting the ground in front of our community members, that you aren't creating you aren't creating, progress in one place that sets so many people back in another way. It feels to me like there could be more coordination across those.
What do you think about the police buyback issue? I think Lowry Hill is famously like raising money to pay for extra patrols in their neighborhood. And I think other neighborhoods are doing this. And for listeners who maybe are not familiar, it's the practice of either organizations or business groups getting together and basically paying for police overtime. So they'll pay like $100 an hour for police patrols. Do you think this is what do you think about this?
I think it's unacceptable. I mean, we're in a situation where, we have our city leaders expressing that, we don't have enough police, and those same police that we don't have enough of are being, jobbed out to the highest bidder. It's hugely problematic. We are essentially privatizing policing. We already pay as taxpayers for police. There are a few basic things that we expect from our city: fire, police, snowplow, trash, roads. I mean, how many of those are really going super well right now? And, to be fair, our incumbent did express concern about the buyback program right before she voted yes for Lowry Hill to spend $250,000 to buy police time. That is, let's face it, now not available for other parts of the city. So I think it's hugely problematic. And I think at a minimum, we would want to hit stop on that until we can stabilize our public safety, arrangements. Are people getting adequate amount of rest? Are people, what are the steps that we need to take to ensure that those who are wearing the badge and carrying the gun, have what they need to be successful in their jobs, whether it is enough sleep, whether it is appropriate, supports, wellness, appropriate train. I mean, let's have really, really high expectations. We should have, our expectations have gotten really low around the city of Minneapolis. We're just happy if, we go a week or a month and we're not on the front pages with some terrible news. That's the wrong way around for us to be thinking about it. We have to reform our own thinking about what is possible for us to do. We should have safety and reform both. I will not choose between the two of them. And I don't want my safety at the expense of someone's safety across the city. Because when we're up in car thefts, someone across the city is looking at a gun. Because there are neighborhoods that just experience more crime. Our crime is up in several areas here in Ward 13, but we're still the safest part of the city. So when we cough, metaphorically, someone else gets COVID and dies. And so that can't happen. And so the police buyback program is an example of something that is just, it's not appropriate.
So I guess I haven't asked this question directly yet, but I've kind of like talked around public safety. So what would you do if elected to make Ward 13 and the city safer? Like, what are some of your priorities?
I think safety and vitality. There's a yin and a yang to safety and vitality. You get too far out of whack, and you don't have economic vitality because you've spent down all of your resources on programs promoting, the amplification of safety issues. There's something that goes together about the two of those, and it's an issue that is not just about the moment when the call goes into 911. And we have studies that show that people, the last thing they want to do is call 911 at this point. So they might be in a terrible situation. They do not want to call 911 because it's too scary to think of what that outcome might be. And that's, that's horrifying to me. And again, pardon my naivete, but I want to live in the world where the policeman, can be relied upon, or the police person or the person in public safety or the peace officer can be relied upon for the peace, for restoring the peace, for helping the individual who is in need. But if that's not the case, then let's reduce the police community interactions to where we absolutely need, the biggest tool that they have, which is, the use of deadly force. Like, how often is that the case? It's not very often at all. At the same time, we have people who don't want to go downtown because it doesn't feel safe. So safety is, it's a mindset. Are we investing in our youth? I mean, we have some real challenges where, our young people, they are adrift and they don't have purpose or they don't have supports or their basic needs are not being met or their entrepreneurial spirit isn't being properly engaged. Well, the budget's a values document. Are we putting our investments into the things that create opportunity, that create the possibility for prospering? And so it's a multifaceted thing, for sure. But the co-responder pilot that the Office of Innovation had come up with a couple of years ago, a co-responder pilot. So, finally now we're kind of getting it going, and that's exciting. But those are the things that I would like to see us do with a greater sense of urgency, especially now where, I mean, it's we lost our opportunity to lead on this, responding in an urgent way it's way past urgent. It's also too late to talk about this as a crime wave.
So I'm trying to think about how to ask this question. Number one, this will be a very long and rambly question, so prepare yourself, brace yourself. So I think has MPD earned their reputation? Is the State Department of Human Rights correct in their assessment of a pattern of racist and abusive policing, you think? I guess this is a quick question. I will follow up with a longer and rambly question.
I understand it's quick. I'll be very quick in my answer, but I can't just answer yes or no because
you can talk as long as you want.
I have respect for people who desire to make their career in keeping peace, in reducing violent crime, in having citizen accountability. I have respect for that. So where that has gone wrong, whether it's in historical roots, which I think, policing came about to capture escaped enslaved people and send them back. So there's problems from the origins of policing. But having said that, there are people who are passionate about making this their career for just all the right reasons. But is it correct that, just as we found in today, that Memphis, and I'm thinking of Memphis because of what happened so recently, but the Justice Department has just called another city, problematic in terms of racist patterns of policing. So in our city, yeah, absolutely. It's funny how it never used to happen before there was video, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's where I might get rambly, or maybe I can find it in me to be eloquent about it. But so I was watching a city council meeting, and Lisa Goodman was accusing her colleagues of being. Let me see if I could remember. She was sick and tired of them accusing police officers of being misogynistic and racist and all the rest of it. Nobody had actually said that. I think the underlying issue was, should cops be required to carry their own insurance? And regardless of what you think about the underlying issue, she wasn't criticizing their policy idea. She was just making up an argument that they didn't make. And this is where I get rambly. So it goes to in another thing, Goodman related, she was talking about a gas station in Loring Park that had to fence off the parking lot to put a damper on public safety issues or crime issues that were happening in the parking lot. And she's like, well, I guess this is because, people have shouted defund the police too loudly or something like that. That was basically what she said. So it gets to this idea of what is the diagnosis of the problem? Is it, I tend to think it's wrong to blame the people who've been pointing out for all these years before 2020 about the systemic problems in policing, to say, well, this sentiment that we should defund or abolish the police is the cause of the problem. We've had lots of cops quit for many reasons, and some of those reasons might have to do with how dysfunctional MPD is. Some of them might have to do with the public reaction, and some of it might have to do with a reputation they earned. This is a very complicated issue, and I guess I'm asking for your diagnosis of what got us here, so you can take it wherever you want.
I appreciate you saying, John, that it is a very complicated issue. And when we get so reductionist that all we can say is, defund or more police. I mean, we're like unsophisticated children, and we need to grow up and recognize that the solutions that are involved involve, if there's a particular word that is a trigger, let's find a new word. Let's find a new word that will allow people to actually come to the same table and think about what it is that we want to accomplish. I don't know anybody who wants police who are going to harm people because of the skin they happen to be in. And so we don't want that. And we don't want a community in which some members of the community cannot safely go about their business. So what we're saying is we want safety and we want reform, and we shouldn't have to choose between the two of those things. And so how are we going to get there? For me, and this is the way I think about things, it's less about choosing a side, it's more about choosing a path. Because when you're choosing a side, that means there's another side, and the only way you can advance is by, dominating the other side, poking them in the eye so bad, revolution, one side, the other side. I just don't think that's going to be productive for us. So in the situation that we have right now, there's there are tendencies, there's a culture that is not acceptable. There are individuals who need to be accountable for their behaviors and their actions. There is a new way of thinking. There's a mindset shift that has to occur. And that takes nothing away from people who honorably want to spend their time in ensuring safety and ensuring that crime is investigated, that criminals are held accountable, that violence doesn't occur against one person against another. We have to be able to speak about both those things without being struck by lightning. We have to be able to talk about that, or we're not going to be able to make progress. So I'm not sure I think you may have even been more elegant than I am, but at the end of the day, we'll make progress when we are able to recognize that this is not a binary.
We can shift away from public safety now. On your website, you're calling for a better workplace culture at City Hall. And here's just a quote so listeners know what we're talking about. We will consciously strive to ensure City Hall is a safe place for people to do the work of a great city. I wonder, are you referring to anything in particular, and what would you do to address this problem?
Yeah, so I started a business a couple of years ago that is focused on working across difference more effectively by understanding lived experiences that aren't your own, and working to the point of appreciating that that there are a variety of lived experiences, and that we're successful when we recognize that there are different ways of knowing, that the way you know, but someone from a different lived experience, the way they know is actually going to create a better outcome, especially when we're talking about a city with all of the different life experiences people have in their communities, in their home, in their workplace. In the city enterprise, I've become aware, because it has been in the public space, that there are a number, 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and even more of individuals who don't feel that they can bring their way of knowing to the workplace, that they can bring who they are to work. And I'm not talking about like, well, let's get really fuzzy and and super emotional. It's like, can I just show? Can I be a woman? Can I be a queer person? Can I be Black, Hispanic, Asian? Can I be that? Because that's what I am. And will I be able to come to work and have my voice heard? Will I be able to come to work and have my my work and efforts recognized and valued? So when we talk about equity and how committed we all are to equity, it's very difficult to think about that from a city perspective when there are so many problems in the House. And so I feel that the incumbent from Ward 13 is has a responsibility, as do all of the other council members. If things are that bad right under the roof in the house of, the enterprise, then how are we going to be able to effectively create a more equitable city? Isn't this like a top priority for us? So when I understand that there is that type of problem, I'm just not great about, staying above the fray, or in the case of the incumbent, staying below the fray. I just feel like, the fray is the reality that we're living in right now. So how can we, what is it that we need to do to actually help to resolve some of these challenges so that we can be successful as a city, so that we can be great?
So are we talking about the city coordinator's office and the black staff and others who were critical of, what's her name? I'm blanking on her name.
And that is what I'm talking about, because that is what I've read and studies as I'm understanding the enterprise and what is happening that is successful, and where are the challenges. Is there something for me to do here? Because there's lots of things I could do with my time. Again, it's not about me. It's about, can I affect a change that we need to see? And so my understanding is that people from across the city enterprise are having experiences where in their work environment they're not comfortable because of the nature. The environment is not inclusive, is not valuing them. And I know this can be irritating to some people, but those are probably people who just haven't had to think about it. That's the nature of privilege, right? Privilege is something you don't have to think about. So a lot of us don't have to think about it. But, I sit in meetings and someone will volume up over me, and, that's called overspeaking. I experience that. I sit in meetings and, I'm overspeaking, and I have to become aware of that. So this is just a real moment for all of us to become more aware. So as people are having these challenges, where do they take them? They take them to the city coordinator's office. So it's not that 80 people have trouble with one individual city coordinator. It's 80 people having trouble wherever they are across the enterprise, and they're bringing that concern and not feeling it is being addressed at the city coordinator's office. So I think there might be a little bit misunderstanding that folks who've even looked into it have, that all of these people feel that there's one person in the enterprise who's challenging to deal with. People are having challenges where they are across the enterprise, and where they're meant to take these challenges, they're not feeling that they're able to be successful, to be heard, or their challenges remedied.
So it's Heather Johnston. I Googled it. I found the name. So would you have voted to put Heather Johnston in her job as the permanent city coordinator?
So I don't know what the choices were at that moment. So
I think it was just, confirm her or reject her and make the mayor go find someone else.
So if the choice, let me think about this now. So one of the things I can do is shape better choices. It's terrible to be in a situation or it's where it comes to that. What happened upstream from that? That challenge didn't just pop out of the ground that day, right? There's and we have this, we have this in our city, and we have an incumbent who's been in office for 10 years. So, are these challenges a surprise? Where has the leadership been to engage, not in the bright light or glare of media, but in the day-to-day work of helping people come together and having a work environment that is high functioning, not low functioning? So those are the things that frustrate me quite a bit. And what I think I bring is shaping better choices. So maybe that choice would have been someone other than this individual. I don't know this individual, so it's difficult, for me to say. But clearly, there's a problem here, and is the problem this individual isn't being supported to make changes? Is being told, suck it up, just you got to face these people and just tell them to go back to their desks. These I am not in the details of, but if I'm in that role, I will know enough to know, and I do pride myself on authenticity. So like it or don't like it, I'm going to be making that effort to understand what that situation actually is.
So government structure, we're still working on it. In the Charter Commission, I was at a meeting like a week or two ago where they were talking about how much appointment power should the city council have. That's one of the issues with further restructuring the government. And in ordinance, it is the case that the city council no longer has the power to like vote to confirm a police chief, a fire chief, public works, a department head. But city charter still has that requirement for those job titles and a handful of other ones. So like, do you think the city council has the right amount of appointment power? Should they have less appointment power? Should the mayor be able to just say, or his, people under him, this is going to be the public works director. We've made our decision. This is going to be the police chief. We've made our decision. Or, do we leave it the way it is? One of the, and I'll give you this context. This is important too. One of the arguments from a charter commissioner was that, that people just don't, it's hard to attract good talent to these jobs because of the political fights they have seen on TV, over, going to work for the city as a department head. So
It is a really tough job to have. It's not well paid compared to other jobs you might have with the same skill set to make a decision to work for the city. And by the way, to be an elected on city council, these are very challenging situations. And I think, a basic respect for people who bring their credentials forward is missing and is something that we absolutely need. As it relates to who holds that final authority, I think there has to be an opportunity for the council as the check on the executive if there's something hugely problematic to be able to stop that train. So I don't know where the Charter Commission is. I think they are starting to focus on City Council now and how the City Council will hold power. But it is a time for redefining that role but ensuring that there's that robust opportunity to hold the enterprise accountable for what it is that the will of the voters want between elections, right? Because, the next time this rolls up for election is 2025. And so that's a long time for individual voters to wait, and they need council to be able to have the opportunity to answer back if something is really just hugely problematic.
So I was reading, again, the Southwest Voices interview you did, and you called 2040 plan implementation asynchronous, and that senior citizens can't walk 6 blocks to buy a ladder. Are senior citizens having to walk 6 blocks to buy a ladder because of the 2040 plan?
And why do they need ladders?
Yeah, why? What are they doing when they get
Where does
home?
all
Are
that
they
come from?
Can they get it out of their car? I have a lot of questions about this answer that you gave. So, what do you mean by asynchronous?
This kind of gets to, I probably should have framed that up better, but this kind of gets to, in my little neighborhood node where I live, we have a hardware store. And it's been there a long time. And it's a family business, and they're super, committed to serving the community. And the future comes in and lays down, an amazing kind of bike highway for that time in the future when we will be, hopping on and off transit, and we're going to have we're going to have more density, more people. So that time is coming, but that bike highway that's there now forgot to drop in bike racks. Number one. Number two, took out all the parking spots for the local hardware store, so I'm like, well, how do people get their ladders home? Like, how do people, this is a hardware store, right? So that was you can't bring a step ladder home on a bicycle. That's kind of where that came from. And this is kind of a theme with me, is that we have, the present and the future have to be friends. And right now they're not, because we who are leading, haven't done as good a job as we need to have these things happen in a synchronous way, so that when we have the, bike superhighway, we have mitigation that says, seniors who live in this apartment are going to, they want to be another 10, 15 years in the city. It's going to take a really long time to get to that future. And in the meantime, I want my hardware store, and so do my neighbors. And so does every part of the city wants to be able to get to amenities without, going over to, Edina or to Richfield.
So with these transportation conversations around bus lanes and bike lanes and, how many car lanes are we going to have? How much parking are we going to have? It feels like culture war, and a lot of it, and I will say this as someone who is on one side of this debate, it feels like the other side is often untethered from reality and the actual impacts of the change. And so here's my question. Have we gone too far with the bus lanes and the bike lanes, or is there more to do?
I think that, like with Hennepin Avenue, which is, kind of been, is a recent challenge that we've seen, we had a robust, and I have to say, ultimately healthy back and forth between people with different points of view. And ultimately, I don't know that one point of view or another point of view got everything that they wanted. We have bus lanes. They're not 24/7 bus lanes all the time. And, I think for right now, that's probably a pretty good outcome. And that may just outrage people. But the people who would feel that outrage, and we're talking about Uptown in this case, not Ward 13, where people are perhaps untethered from reality, or, I think people on both
Don't
sides.
say that. Don't say that, Kate. You're running in Ward 13. Don't say that.
No, I mean, you can make the argument that, we're in a bit of a bubble down here. I mean, I totally get it.
When I said untethered from reality, I was mostly speaking of people close to me. I love Ward 13. Everyone there is normal and totally well-balanced and well-adjusted. So.
Right. So, I think there is an inherent tension between the needs of now and the needs of the future. And we can't neglect the needs of now because we're designing for that future, and we can't ignore the needs of that future because we just really like it the way it is right now. We don't want change because change is coming. And so I think that I have a capability to assist with, understanding things like 18,000 units that we need every year, like we're going to need those units, all of us. Or, we're not going to be a city that's growing. We're going to be a city that's declining, and then our kids won't want to live here. And wouldn't that be awful? Like there's some rational rationality that, I think things can get very, very emotional. And I think if we can take some of the emotion down while recognizing people have very strong feelings about these issues.
So I wonder, you said we're neglecting the needs of the now. Have we gone too far with the bus lanes and the bike lanes? Just speaking generally as the city at large, have we gone too far? We're neglecting now. Does that mean we've gone too far with transportation alternatives?
Today and this week, we had that giant storm a week ago, and most of our streets were not plowed, and they weren't for days, but the bike lane was, and so that's 6 or 8 blocks from here, and I'm sure it serves a couple dozen people. In the future, maybe many more. And meanwhile, I can't drive my car without falling into a crater as big as Lake Harriet. So, we've got to have these things happening in balance. So gone too far is not so much about, not having the plan, not having the intention, not even enacting the plan, but like we have to be able to sort of walk and chew gum. And this is where I think some of the de-siloing of parts of government would recognize that, awesome, Bryant Superhighway for bikes is like, it's up and it's running, and also it's March and it's snowing and people can't even walk on the sidewalk, potholes everywhere, like where's the response for that for right now? Like I just would like to see, and maybe it's just, constituent services or how, one particular part of Minneapolis or one ward is, maybe in other wards it's all going really well hand in hand, but here it feels, right now it feels challenging between it, just in that situation between those two issues of what's working over here and what the perhaps unintended consequence is over here.
The bike superhighway you were talking about was Bryant Avenue. I didn't realize that. So this could be a quick question. Would you have voted to approve the layout for Bryant?
I would have added mitigation. There would be bike racks.
So that's what it's missing. It's missing the bike racks.
And some of our business nodes, they need parking.
Okay. So how would you have accommodated more parking in that?
Well, as I talk to our community members, they say they went to all the presentations and they expressed the challenge that it would mean for them. So I am wondering, in that process, is that process actually meant to make something alter or change or improve? Because people that I'm talking to don't feel like that they were heard. And they feel strongly, John, that they love, like, they ride bikes, they use transit. These aren't people who are like, I never leave my car. They're just people who feel like their concerns, which are important because their businesses serve the entire community, were not addressed, were not heard. So, that is a really great example of where, no, don't throw the project out, but can we mitigate here? Can we work together? Can we say, like, all right, i.e. a hardware store. Again, this is it's my closest in example. You have vans who need to pull up, they need to load, unload. How are we going to think about that? It's going to take a really long time to get another hardware store if we lose that hardware store. Doesn't that matter? Like, the city's here to serve the people, or are we here to support some city infrastructure for future people that aren't us? Like, that is the pace and order of operation piece that I think hasn't been well handled.
Well, to sound a note of optimism, people often say that the bike lane will cause businesses to close, and I don't know if I can think of a single bike lane that killed a business in Minneapolis. But things will probably turn out okay.
Yeah, yep. Businesses come and go, and hopefully people are resilient. Around Ward 13, I see a lot of empty storefronts, and there's good old LaRue's, the magic shop. They feel like bike lanes killed their business. They had to get up and move and go somewhere else. So maybe that's it, is you just kind of push them somewhere else. But that's unfortunate for the people who used to walk there. Maybe another business will pop in there and it'll be more transit oriented. I mean, the future is coming. I totally get it and I understand. But in the meantime, there are a lot of, there are people who are trying to make it work week to week, month to month, and year to year, not decade to decade.
So I wonder about this. We've talked a little about the transportation aspects of 2040 plan. How about housing? Do you agree with the basic trend of rezoning that's happening in Minneapolis over the last few years?
We absolutely need density. We absolutely need density in especially the transit-friendly corridors that we have. And we need 18,000 units. So people really need to kind of consider that, 18,000. So you're going to put 18,000 in, one part of town. I mean, there's some amount of density that we have to add to different parts of the city. And so I think the focus on transit, transit-friendly nodes makes a lot of sense. And it makes a lot of sense to have those kind of go, hand in hand. But for example, I was talking to somebody in Linden Hills today, and Linden Hills was like, the Santa Cruz of Minneapolis. And so it's ironic that we have people in Linden Hills who are like, oh man, like this future's coming at us really, really hard, and describing how these, little one-level storefronts would be, kind of completely overtaken by, by giant buses that need to, they want to go right there. And again, that just really feels to me like, these are the choices. Like, are we shaping the best possible choices? Are we really hearing the input that our community is giving us? And are we responding to that?
Does Linden Hills really want to be known as the Santa Cruz of Minneapolis? I've never heard that before.
No, like these are people who are like, oh, we're Democrats and we're for, we want diversity, we want change, we want, and so, but just ironically, I think there are a lot of people who are like, wow, okay, there's like no kind of step change. It's like sea change. And it's people I'm talking to are like, my business is, I'm not going to be able to make it. And they're scared. Like, these are people who, this is not just a job for them. This is, their life. So I think it's important to recognize that and to have that reflected in the conversation. And that's not the same as saying like, don't do it. So to the point of like, building and density, let's do it, especially where it makes a lot of sense, because it is a transit friendly corridor. It's really easy in and out, and you aren't going to have to entirely change the character of a neighborhood. But eventually, we're all going to need to recognize that we can move a couple miles that way and be in Edina and not have to deal with it, right? But even in Edina, that's happening too.
I have not managed time well, and I've got a rent control question. So do you have a quick answer on your thoughts on rent control?
I'm not in favor of rent control because it will suppress the building of the housing stock of 18,000 units a year that we need.
So is there any version of rent control, like thinking of all the different aspects of that policy? Can you think of one that you could support, that you could come up with? You don't have to give it, but can you imagine that one exists?
Rent control. I think if you peg something to CPI, that'd be interesting, so that people are not priced out of their housing. But you let there be some market dynamics in play that are in the last year. What is it? Inflation at 7 and 10% and more. Like that's really hard for people on limited income. So having some type of solution that it recognizes that people are living within, trying to live within their means is important. But rent control, let's watch St. Paul and wait and see what happens and learn from that.
So this is a question that was suggested, I think, by someone who read I think I read it in Southwest Voices, like a reader response to the interview you did. And I think it was about, you are Kate Mortenson of the Mortenson construction family. And so are there like zoning issues involving that company that you feel like you would have to recuse yourself from on the city council?
100%. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, I'm not precluded from making my contribution to a better Minneapolis because of that connection. But, when there are conflicts, you disclose them. So we're allowed to have conflicts. We disclose them. And then where that conflict could be problematic to a fair result, we say conflict can't, not. So absolutely, 100%. And I think that's really important for people to know and understand. Yeah.
Okay. So we are at the end, and I typically ask people if they have recommendations. So do you have a hobby? Is there a book or a movie or a game you enjoy, an activity that you like that you think would make other people happy? You can pick one or two things, whatever you feel like recommending to people that would brighten their lives.
I love it. I have a grand dog. My daughter's dog.
What is a grand dog?
Well, I don't have any grandkids, but my daughter has a dog, so I have a grand dog. That doesn't mean my child's a dog, but she is a dog. And it's a miniature poodle, Elvis, Miss Elvis, by the way. So female dog called Elvis. Just being around that dog just makes me so happy. And being outside with that dog makes me happy. So, people who have pets, love your pet. Take your pet, walk outside, enjoy hearing birds this time of year. That's definitely one thing. And if that's not working for you, Triangle of Sadness is a really good movie.
Okay. Did you not have your own dog? You live vicariously through your child's dog?
Right now I do. Yeah, right now it kind of works for me in that sort of like faux grandparenting way where like you get to have them and then you get to give them back.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about having launched children. I'm super excited about putting my the pedal to the metal in terms of what I can accomplish. And so yeah, a dog might get hungry waiting for me.
Is there anything we didn't cover? I'm not trying to make this any longer than it needs to be, but did I forget anything?
Well, we're at a point where I look around and I'm wondering, is this all there is for Minneapolis? Like, can we do better? And I know the answer to that question. This is not all there is, and we can do better. And I'm really excited to be a part of that. So the personal excitement that I feel to be involved in helping to shape better Minneapolis and make life better for people. I'm just, I look forward to that opportunity. I hope the voters of Ward 13 will give me that opportunity.
Thank you, Kate Mortenson, for the conversation. I enjoyed meeting you. And good luck March 14th, acquiring as many delegates as you can. And Linea Palmisano, if you're listening, please come on the podcast. Please. This has been the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. Thank you for listening.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.